welcome back to my channel. It has been a little while and I'm just excited to be here. I feel like it has been a very long time, and firstly I just wanted to say thank you guys, because if you follow me on Instagram and all the other social media platforms, you know what's been going on in my life for the last, I guess, 12 months. And if you're just, on my YouTube, that's amazing too. But there's been a lot going on. And this is my first video back in a very long time. And it's going to be more of a catch up with you guys. A bit of a sit down, a chit chat about what's been going on in my life, why I took such a big break from here. And I guess there's some like revelations and things I've learnt as well. But yes, I just wanted to say thank you firstly for being here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. It's been a journey. And of course, the elephant in the room, I dyed my hair red because I just wanted something different. So I hope you guys like it. I never thought I would have gone from blonde to anything else. So I'm loving it. And the kids think I look like Ariel and I'm here for it. Yes, so this is going to be a bit of an emotional video. I don't even know where to start. But if you don't follow me on Instagram and all the other places, I took a break from YouTube and a bit of social media, but pretty much YouTube, because I recently lost my dad. So about April, not last year, the year before, my dad was diagnosed with lymphoma. And of course, I think just having that male figure in your life, your father, usually you never think anything could happen to them. You think they're superhuman, and which I'll get into a bit later. But my dad and I, we've had I guess there's no such thing as a normal relationship, but with my childhood having a disabled brother, the family dynamics were quite different for us. My nan lived with us. She basically raised me. It's a whole other story, but it really did force me to deal with a lot of shit that I never thought I would ever deal with. And it was something that my family and I would have imagined us being in that situation. So yeah, my dad was diagnosed with lymphoma, and he started chemo, and I honestly thought he'd be fine. I couldn't imagine him not being fine. Anyway, the following April, so this was April last year, in 2022, I got the news that that dad had a couple of years left, and that it rocked me to my core, as it would anyone. Just picturing, a future without him, and even just knowing he had a couple of years left, I was very much in denial. I was very angry. And it's hard, like, I think when you're a mother as well, you really want to protect your own children from the whole concept of death and illness. And I'm someone, I've always, everyone's scared of death. But I would say I've got a very intense, I've always had like a phobia of death in terms of losing people I love, which we all do. But this is something I would literally lay awake up night with, like most nights. And then being confronted with this with my own father, and it was something else. And not only being a mum, but I'm also very grateful. I've got my business, which is going amazing, which is Steph Pase Planners. I've got Instagram, all the things, brand deals, all the stuff. And I think it really just it just hit the brakes really hard. I think for me and many of us, I'm always go, go, go. I don't stop. I'm always looking for the next thing. And this is the first time I think I've ever just been like, holy fuck. And then I think it was maybe 2 weeks later that I still remember I was in the car park. I was just about to go to the osteo and I was in the car park and mum rang me, mum and dad, and she said, honey, like, your dad, he's only got months left. And it just felt like not real. Like, I couldn't believe that this is I got so angry, like this was even allowed to happen. Like, how does this happen to people, let alone people lose, you know, children and their husbands? And mum and dad were very much, and me too, were in denial. We're like, no, we're going to beat this thing. We're going to beat this thing. We did find out dad's form of lymphoma was very rare. Like, there was like a 0.01% or something crazy. And then ever since, it was kind of just like this. It's so hard to even remember. I feel like from that point onwards until maybe only 2 months ago, I don't really remember a whole lot. It just makes you see everything. I'm so sorry that this is a very emotional video as well, guys. Like, I just feel like it's something really important for me to talk about, and I can't just come back on YouTube and pretend like nothing happened. And I know from me sharing this experience, you know, as much as I could online at that time, I spoke to so many people who have lost people, who are grieving people who are still here. And that was a big thing. Like, it's called anticipatory grief. And it's basically like you're grieving someone that's still here because you know they're going to go. And so unfortunately, yeah, dad just pretty much went downhill from there. We tried everything, even like the last resort, like just pretty much every treatment you could imagine. And this was like probably the first time I really just had to step down in my business, and just thank God I had, you know, we have like a smaller team, but you know, the girls really did hold out for me, and I just couldn't even focus on anything. And all I obviously was thinking about was dad. And you know, dad and I haven't had as I said, a very standard relationship, if that even is something. I had a lot of childhood trauma I've carried, like pretty much all of us. We all have trauma one way or another. I'm hoping this video makes sense, because this is a really hard thing for me to talk about. So it did make me really face a lot of things. You know, growing up, my dad was my brother's primary carer. If you don't know, my brother's got Down syndrome and autism, so he's quite severely disabled. And you know, when I was really little, dad and I remember us playing and stuff, and as I got older, it was very much so like we didn't have a very close, like there wasn't much of a relationship, and that's okay. Like, fuck, he had a disabled son to look after. He worked full time. Like, he's the most selfless human ever, and I'm not blaming him. I don't even know how I would have coped. But you know, as a child, having my only brother with these disabilities and things like that, you do really kind of learn to kind of fade into the background. And that's okay for me to say. I feel like a lot of siblings, people with disabilities, they're too scared to say, like, this is how it is for us. And it's hard. It's really hard, you know, caring for someone with a disability, and even just seeing the hardships that the family would have to go through. And I'm just so grateful that Adam, like, he's able to swim, and he's considering his disabilities, he's actually very healthy. He's probably healthier than me. And I wouldn't change him for the world. And I wouldn't, you know, he has made me into who I am today. And as much as it was quite hard to be, you know, my nan really did have to, she was like a mum to me, basically, really cared for me. And, you know, this is another time for another story. But yeah, we didn't have much of a relationship. And for me, it was something that I guess it was so hard to kind of be like, okay, well, what do I do? Like, I'm about to lose my father, and we've got so much to try and like mend and catch up on. And it's interesting how when something really bad happens, you kind of just, all the little things don't matter anymore. It's just, you just want that person to be there. And I remember, I think dad, it was like the last couple of weeks he had left, and he was in hospital, so we'd go up to hospital and see him. And even when I drive past the hospital now, like, I literally, it's very triggering. He said to me, like, I just wish I played with you, and I wish I gave you more attention. And of course I understood, like, he has a son had to look after Addie, and I get that. But it was just so, it's crazy how, like, as soon as he said that, it made such a difference, and it helped my healing so much in terms of our relationship, which one day, like, I do hope I can go in more depth with you guys about, because I think it would help a lot of people. Like, we've all gone through this shit in our childhood, and we all carry so much, and we don't really talk about it. I think when you get older, you just be like, well, that's just how things were for us, and this is how my childhood was, and that's okay. And it's okay to, you know, I guess sometimes wish things were different, but him saying that really just, like, it meant everything to me, like absolutely everything. Anyway, and then yeah, so eventually, you know, Dad came out of hospital and went home to Mum, and we just was with him as much as we could. I think a lot of people, when you do what I do as a job, you know, I'm online and all the things, I think they assume you can just step down and, you know, go about other things. But I'm the sole provider for my family, and I'm so grateful, and I love what I do. But in times like that, and when you're grieving, it's very difficult to just simply switch off. In my case, get offline, just step back, because not only does my family rely on me financially, so do my staff's family. And being the face of my business, it's not, you can't just step away. It doesn't work like that. And I did find myself, you know, near the end of Dad's life, really resenting my business, and which I think is very normal, because I'm like, I just want to be with my dad. I don't want to have to be doing emails, jumping in meetings. And look, my team literally held the fort down for me so much. But there were the big things, like we had the planner launch, which was meant to happen literally the month that he passed, and I'm on set doing a shoot because no one else can do the shoot but me. And here I am, just like, before and after the shoots, I'm just bawling my eyes out because I just want to be with my dad. And I think that's just the, like, I guess, and I'm not, firstly, obviously I'm not sharing any of this for sympathy. It's just, I guess it's important for us. It's important to me to show you guys the behind the scenes, because again, as I always say, Instagram only shows you guys the highlights, and people probably think, oh, she dealt with it so well. But in fact, I was a mess. I still am a mess. And, you know, running your own business and doing the things that we do, which I absolutely love, it has its pros and it also has its cons. And I can't remember. I feel like this video is going to be such a mess. But anyway, the last few weeks of my dad's life, he was at home with Mum, and I was staying there for the last few nights. And it's something that I would never, ever want my kids or anyone to go through, because it was horrendous. And just to see him like that. And yeah, so Dad passed on the 15th of September. My mum and I were with him, and it fucking sucked. Sorry. And again, I know I don't have to be sharing this, but I think it's just so important, because before I went through this, like, you just don't know what people are going through. And when I was going through this, and still go through this, I spoke to so many people online about their own grief, and grief can come in many forms. You don't just have to lose a person. It can be, you know, a friendship or a relationship. It could be anything, like a loss of identity. You know, it could be when you become a mother and you feel like you lose your identity. Like, grief comes in so many different forms, and obviously this is quite an extreme form, but I just think it's really important we are open with the shit times. And I've learnt so much from this, and I know grief is always going to be there, and that's something I've learned. And a lot of people told me was, you know, you don't ever get over the grief. And I feel that now, like, it's always like this hole in your heart that you can feel, and some days it feels heavier and some days it's you're a bit more numb to it. But I always said, from after Dad passed, the biggest lesson he's ever taught me in my life was, you know, was just to stop. And that's something that Mum and Dad, before Dad got really sick, they were always very worried about me, because I do like to, I work really hard in what I do. When I'm passionate about something, I give it like 1,000,000%, and it can be to a fault. And you guys would probably know this about me. And he was always worried about, you know, the balance in me, which is working 24/7. And I think that stems a lot from, you know, me people pleasing and just having ridiculously high standards for myself. And that's something I'm still working on. But I always say the biggest lesson my dad taught me was it just made me stop for the first time, I feel like, in my whole life, and truly just be present. And that's something I've always struggled with. And I feel like we all struggle with being present with, you know, social media and doing all the things, you know, even if you have kids or you don't have kids, you're always chasing the next thing and you're always like waiting to be happy when you achieve X, Y, Z. And it's like, no, like my dad has made me realize you can't wait to be happy. You have to literally, like, this is your life that's happening right in this moment. And again, I know this is a really, really fucking deep video for me to come back to on YouTube, but I couldn't not say the things that I've learned from my experience so far. Basically, the months following Dad's passing, for the first time, I literally just lent into whatever I felt like that would make me cope. And that was like, I literally would read all day. I got back into my fiction books. Like, I used to love reading when I was little. I used to always read Harry Potter. And, you know, growing up, my household was it was intense. It was a very intense household. And for me to escape what was going on, I would read. And then it literally, like, as soon as Dad even got sick, I'd pick the books right back up. For me, I would always read self-help books and things like that. But for this, I just was like, I need to escape. And the self-help, I felt like when you read business and self-help too much, you feel like instead of you switching off, you're always thinking, I need to be better, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that. And it's actually not giving you a break. But when you read fiction, it just takes you into another world. And I know months after Dad passed, I was reading like 8 books a month. It was insane. But that's what helped me cope. And I was doing cross-stitching and I was painting. And as shit as it was, it made me realize how much I've just been constantly striving to be, you know, this and that. But sometimes you just need to just be in the moment and be present. And it's something that I promised myself when I eventually went back to work, like went back to the warehouse since Dad's passing. I was like, I'm never going to be like how I was. I'm going to live. I'm going to have balance. Promised myself I wouldn't be working myself into the ground again. And then, yeah, it really did put a lot into perspective, because especially like my dad, he was such an adventurer. He'd travel, he'd do all the things. And then, you know, he settled down with Mum, and his first child had severe disabilities. And it really, for Dad, I couldn't have imagined, like, obviously for Mum also, like, my mum is part of this story as well. But obviously I'm focusing on Dad because he's the one that's passed. But, you know, for someone that's been such an adventurer, and then, you know, you've got a child with high needs, he kind of stopped doing that. And I know, you know, I just feel like the shit doesn't matter. Just like what Barbara said in the office, like, or, oh no, I don't fit into these jeans anymore. Like, who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? Like, life is just so short, and we go through life just constantly being assholes to ourselves and working ourselves into the ground, and not really just being reflective and being like, good, like, you're doing a good job. I don't know if this is even making sense, but anyway. And I guess I just wanted to come back on and be like, you know, I feel like since my platform's grown, I've always been a people pleaser, especially, you know, growing up with a disabled brother. You know, he had such high needs, obviously, that as a child, I didn't necessarily get the focus and attention from my parents, and that's fine, like, of course. So I kind of learnt how to kind of melt into the background, be a people pleaser, just always be okay. And, you know, I was a carer too. Like, I remember when I was a teenager, when I would work for like part-time jobs, I always had to make sure I had certain days free to look after my brother. And I love that. And when I say this, I'm not saying this out of sympathy. I'm not trying to get sympathy. But I think we go through life just trying to please other people. And for me, I'm very soft-hearted. And so when my platform's grown, I feel like I've really watered myself down, because I just, you know, like, we all know you can't say much anymore. Not that I have very controversial opinions anyway, but I do feel like I've watered myself down just to protect myself. And I just don't want to do that anymore. And that's something my dad's taught me, is life's too short to water yourself down, and just not do the shit you truly enjoy and wait and stop waiting for goals and achievements to let yourself be happy. But anyway, oh my goodness, I'm gotta stop saying sorry. That's one of my people pleasing tendencies. But I am sorry, this is a bit of an intense video to come back to, but I just think it's really important. And you know, I'm really excited to be back on YouTube. I genuinely love sharing with you guys. I've always been an oversharer. It's who I am. Ask my team. I'm always talking about things I shouldn't be. And I don't know what capacity, like I'm obviously going to be coming back with like, you know, your house resets and all the fun things and the new build, which I'm really excited about. That was something Dad was like, he just would light up when I'd show him videos of our new house, like the house we're building. And he really, it does kill me because he was just genuinely like so excited for this house, and he sees, you know, how hard we work and how much my business has grown, and he generally would just thrive. Like he'd always ask me for updates on new products and what I'm doing and how the team is going and the warehouse and the house, and he generally just like, he was just so, and it was just a beautiful connection we had with that. Like he genuinely brought him joy, and I guess that's like now a mission for me, to have that balance, but to continue on and make him proud and continue making him proud. And I do wish he could have seen like the house and been here for everything, but yes. So it's a little update. I love you guys. If you're still here listening, I appreciate you. And I'm really glad to be back. I'm going to try my best to be uploading every week, but obviously grief is a journey, and I'm just going to do my best and just share what feels good, pretty much. And I am really excited to be back. So anyway, I appreciate you guys so much. I hope this video made sense. I love you, and I will see you later. Bye.